All right. So in this quick lesson, we'll be looking at what are the required position for HIK to work, right? Remember, HIK is an automatic rigging system, so the solver assumes certain things. So if you're going to bring in your own skeleton, it's perfectly all right. You just need to make sure to follow some of the rules, right? The first rule that you need to follow is the skeleton needs to be facing the z-axis, right? So in this very innocent looking skeleton that I brought in, it has a few hidden problems, and let's look at those together. All right, so the first thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I'm pointing the z-axis. So I'm going to go ahead here and just rotate this. And I'm going to do a freeze transform. Secondly, we need the hands and the arms spread along the x-axis. So the hands are incorrect right now, but the arms are fine, right? Which is your typical T-pose. I will take the hand here and, take the hand, and you'll see that the hand is facing what I would say the camera, but HIK really assumes your palms are facing the ground. And sadly, yes, this includes your thumb. So for all those riggers out there that like to have the thumb in a natural pose, HIK will assume that it needs to be flat, right? So it's really important that the entire hand, including the thumb, just needs to be flat. All right? And I'm just going to go ahead and do a freeze transform on that. HIK also assumes that your head is up, which for most characters it will be. It assumes your feet are perpendicular to the leg and above the ground. Right now, my origin is here, right? If I were to bring in the grid, right, we'll see that the skeleton is below the grid. This will work with HIK, but you got to remember there are things like floor contacts that we're going to be looking at later on. So you just want to make sure that it is positioned correctly at the origin. All right, so I'm just going to zoom in and make sure that it's perfectly done. And here I'm just going to do freeze transform, but on the translate. So positionally wise, everything looks good. There are a few more hidden problems. For example, some of my joints have been scaled, mostly in my arms. It's never a good idea to scale your joints in Maya in general, but with HIK it's even worse because it will rescale itself. HIK assumes that your scaling is at 1, and when you go and you start characterizing it, it will, change the dimension and the sizing of things. So it's not a good idea to have any kind of scaling other than at 1. If you absolutely need joints to be in this position, I would suggest just redoing your skeleton with the joint tool. All right. Sometimes also when we scale joint, we like to have segment scale compensate to on. HIK will turn it off if it's on. It's just one of those things, you'll get a warning, and we'll look at that later on when we start characterizing, but you just want to make sure that this is set to off. As for a naming convention, it's always good to have a naming convention in your skeleton, right? Left or right. It's really important the x-axis, right? The positive x-axis is the left, and the negative x-axis is the right. So this is important. You can have things like, that are not named properly. HIK doesn't assume any name. It doesn't assume that this particular joint will be called shoulder or arm or clavicle or anything, but it is always good to have a naming convention so that when you do your mirroring and when you do your characterize, it's done properly. So I'm just going to go ahead here and rename this one with a left. So in the next lesson, we'll be looking at what are the required nodes, and what exactly does that mean with HIK?